Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Marny Williams Boladis from the Hummingbird Center for Hope. Marny's story is one of love and dedication as she founded the Hummingbird Center to support widowed parents navigating the challenges of grief. In this episode, Marny shares her personal grief journey, the unique struggles faced by widowed parents and children, and her advice on how we can better support those who are sole caregivers. There's a lot to learn, so let's jump in. Marny, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
I'm excited to be here.
To get us started, can you please share a little bit about your journey and what actually inspired you to co-found the Hummingbird Center for Hope?
Well, it ultimately started because my husband died. It was crazy to say that it was 22 years ago. He was diagnosed with cancer, and it was 6 weeks from diagnosis to death, so it was very quick. And I had a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old at the time. And I always joke that being grieving and hormonal with a new baby is not a good combination, but somehow we made it through. Um, I did have good support back then. I had family. I did find a group, but it wasn't enough for what I needed. And so Hummingbird was developed or created on my lack of support, my what I needed during my days of grief, and to hopefully provide that for other widowed parents that followed in my footsteps.
And when you mention support that you needed, what type of services do you provide for the families that you serve, and how do they benefit bereaved spouses and their families?
Right. The main thing we provide is group, where parents can come together, be with other widowed parents, and build that community around them. Our groups are offered virtually, so trying to limit the barriers that could prevent parents from coming. So they don't have to worry about babysitters, they don't have to worry about travel, and it's actually expanded our reach. So we are in Kitchener-Waterloo region, Southern Ontario. We do have an in-person group for people there, but our virtual stuff allows people to come from across Canada and into the States. We also have a dads group specific for our widowed dads because their journey has a uniqueness because they're dads versus the grief journey of moms. And it's nice to be able to offer something unique to them. But all our groups are based on the premise of building community, providing education, and normalizing people's grief journeys. When they say, oh my gosh, this happened, and the rest of the screen or the room has their heads nodding, it really empowers you and lets you take that deep breath and go, okay, I'm not the only one. And there's great power in that.
I love that you identified that there's differences between parents, mothers, fathers, when it comes to navigating grief, that journey in and of itself, and in particular, if they have kids of opposite gender too, it's just very unique experiences. So I appreciate that as a
Puberty for dads and girls is fun, and certainly for moms and sons is fun, right? So
yeah, I'm a living example of that experience. So
yeah, yeah.
I see the value in it 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you were developing these programs and these supports, what did you pull from your personal experiences as a widow and also single parent that influenced the work that you're doing right now?
I think it comes back to that community, right? That I didn't have that, and being able to provide that certainly influences what we do now. We want to make sure our widowed parents aren't alone, that they don't feel alone, that there is stuff out there for them. Um, and also like just general resources. Practicality in grief is a huge thing, right? How do I now do the responsibilities that were my partner's job? So even just educating on time management or boundaries, or getting in other professionals that can talk about finances or, basic home maintenance and car maintenance, right? Because if it wasn't your role within the relationship, you have a learning curve to go on and whatever that was. So trying to provide resources or, referrals out to other places that can provide that is a big help, because we find the practicality can be so overwhelming because now everything's on you. And how can we sort of lessen that burden a little bit? Which again was all the stuff that I was missing. I didn't have, I had my dad who was fantastic. He knows everything about everything, but not everybody's as lucky or as fortunate as that to have someone that they can go to and say, my gosh, like furnace won't start. What do I do? Right? Because it would have been going to
Yeah.
your other person. Or we had a dad that got the notification home from schools that said, your child needs vaccinations by the end of the week. And they were like, what? Right? So helping them navigate those kinds of things. And it all stems back to what I didn't have.
And when it comes to the children in the scenario, in the situation that they're experiencing, how do you go about approaching the ability to provide support for children's grief? And are there any specific unique challenges that you encounter in this area?
Yeah. We always talk about the kids. They are always a discussion in our groups. I think the biggest what we see happen is our widowed parents put all their energy into their kids to make sure that their extracurriculars are good and that they're getting the support that they need to the detriment of the parents. So we provide education and again that validation and that opportunity to vent out as to what's going on with the kids. So we educate a little bit about, big question we hear is my kid doesn't talk about their parent. Is that normal? Right? It's a big worry for the parent, but can be absolutely normal for a child's experience, and certainly in different stages where they're at. So by educating our parents, it helps empower them again to sort of know, what to expect as much as we can't expect. But if there's a big emotional burst, then they can sit with them differently. They've got extra tools to support their kids' grief. And the unique challenge is that, if you're a parent of multiple kids, is that each child grieves differently and on their own time. So you might have, one that wants to talk and one that doesn't want to talk, one that wants to honor their parent and the other one that doesn't want to do anything. And as a solo parent, you have to navigate each child's grief experience and support each one. And often when these big questions or these things come up, it's always at bedtime. Kids always, I don't care how old the kid is, right? It's bedtime when they want to talk. Or, the teenager will come in at 11 o'clock at night and want to sit down and talk to the parent. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. And now you have to rally it up because this is your opportunity to talk to the kids. I think the biggest challenge is that kids' grief changes, it evolves, and no kid does it the same way. So if you have multiple, you got to navigate all of that while you're navigating your own grief, while you're trying to maintain normalcy within the family.
And do you have any pieces of advice for parents who are navigating this new reality for themselves of now being a single parent, having to raise one, two, three, X number of kids, on how to have those discussions around grief or how to navigate emotions that may be coming about and not explicitly being mentioned that they're tied to the grief of the lost parent, but they're having really big emotions about potentially little or larger things. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I call ourselves detectives, right? Is it I'm going to pick on the preteens and the teen years. Is it hormonal? Are the moons misaligned? Was it a friend thing? Are they grieving? What's causing this moment? And by the time you figure it out as a parent, it could be something else. I think, what we really promote for our parents is to model healthy grief, to demonstrate to our kids that it is emotional, that so parents should show emotion in front of their kids. That you do have to ask for help, that it is hard, that some days you do want to sit under the covers, to talk about their parent and make death and grief a conversation within the family. And what that does is when the child is ready to come to the parent, they already know that grief is a safe topic. They already know that they can show their emotions and talk about it within the household. They're not going to be judged or, shunned or whatever that might look like. And we're sort of setting that stage for the kids to come to the parent. The other struggle with parents is, well, shouldn't word it that way. Even though our kids are little, right? What did we like as a parent or as an adult like when we were grieving? Did we like it when someone just sat with us and held our hand or gave us a hug or just listened to us while we were, having an emotional moment? Well, then try that with your kids. Just sit with them. We can't fix their grief any more than anybody can fix our grief, but making it safe, I think, is the important part. And say to them, you're looks like you're struggling right now. How can I help you? Right? Can I do anything? Is it about the parent that died, or is it you need a snack? Sometimes it's as simple as that. It's you need a snack, and then we can have a conversation a bit later. it's it's really hard because parents are depleted too, right? And to go to our resources to support our kids can be hard. But what worked for the parent, and try that with your child.
And now I have a question for folks who see their friend go through this experience. Like they themselves may not have experienced this. They have their own partner, they have their own kids, their own family, and their good friend or like a close friend, close relative experiences this. Do you have any advice on how they can best show up and support this grieving parent and this new reality that they're living in? Because I often find that people very much clam up, they don't know what to do. Relationships kind of uh, separate. Sometimes they come back, but there's just like this awkward phase. Do you
Mhm.
have any advice or insight for those folks?
Um, Absolutely. I think it's to remember that you can't fix, right? Again, there's nothing that you can say that's going to fix it, because the only thing that's going to fix it is to bring the person back. So give yourself permission to start with, to know that. Um, Often what we want is, we want to be heard, we want to share our stories, and we don't want to be shut down, or have the eyes roll because we're sharing the story for the 10th time, right? But not everybody can do the emotional support. And so honor that if that's not you, but we can all do practical support. We can all come over and cut the grass. We can all say, I'm going grocery shopping. Can I get you a few things? We can all say, my kid's on the same hockey team as you. Let's carpool. By helping with the practical side of it, you're giving more time so the parent can support themselves and support their kids in that emotional side. And to remember that practical goes on long after the first 6 months, the first year. I have a friend, two kids were in different sports, and on the same weekend, they needed to be in two different states. We live in Canada, and they needed to be in two different states on the same weekend. Like, how do you navigate that how do you navigate that when there's two of you, let alone there's only one, right? So offer that practical support, and offer it for, if you got a snowblower, come on over and clear their driveway, right? They're going to need it. And
Yeah.
it's such a nice and simple thing, right? Anybody that has a snowblower loves to go over and do everybody's driveways anyway. So just, just go and do those things.
Thank
But
you.
practical is the best way.
Thank you for providing those examples of what people could do for
Mm-hmm.
their friends and loved ones. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the children reaching different life milestones, can you elaborate on how you see the grief of widowed parents kind of evolving as these children are hitting these stages in their life?
Yeah. Um, I think this is a time where grief is forgotten, right? Because it's been X amount of time, and we don't think that learning how to drive without dad around is a significant grief moment for both the child and the surviving parent, right? Because dad, I shouldn't pick on dads, but dad should have been here to teach my kid how to drive, right? And it very much could have been mom. Um, so those milestones are when grief bubbles. It's sort of like those reality checks, I call them, that, here I am at a dance recital, a sporting event, a graduation, marriage, and it goes on. It doesn't stop, right? When I have my first grandchild, I know some grief is going to bubble, right? It's kind of like, um, you're so grateful that this moment is happening for your child, right? You're so thrilled for them. But then there's this little bittersweet, or this little grief part that shows up that goes, oh, their other parents should be here with them and witnessing this and cheering them on, and, whatever that looks like in that moment. So grief does bubble. And, grief softens. The corners, I sort of say that the sharp corners soften as time goes on, but these milestones, and it could be, you know, their sixth birthday is a milestone just as much as the 21st birthday is a milestone, right? At first dates, all those things. And I think it's important to recognize that these are grief moments as well, right? And they're the two sides of it. So cool. Ugh, their parents should be here to honor that with them.
Ugh, and cool. Two sides of the
Yeah,
same coin. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And when there are situations where a parent comes to you or someone in the community mentions that they know someone who could really benefit from the programs and the services that you provide, and then you may get some resistance in some of those situations for them to actually come and seek help or support. How do you handle those situations and navigate it when those arise?
Well, I often say just come and try it. Try it once, right? A lot of our groups are drop-in basis. So come for this one, see what you think. Um, but I also find I don't get a lot of that because we're peer support. When I talk to a new person that's reached out to us, and I always, ask how the kids are doing, I ask how they're doing. And when I can relate it back to me and my story, and share that we are all widowed parents supporting other widowed parents. That's the buy-in. We're not, we've all got kids. We're all figuring our life out without our person in it. And that's the buy-in as we get it, right? When we say, you know, and it can be my parents are driving me crazy. Like as the adult, we can say my parents are driving me crazy, or my in-laws are driving me crazy, or my friends driving me crazy, and I don't know what to do. And when other people in the room go, "Oh my gosh, yes," there's again that's where the strength is. That's where our magic is that we understand differently. We have walked the walk. So resistance is a little less on, I find when they reach out to us, they're already seeking community. They're seeking others that understand as they don't have that in their world. But then, yeah, if it's real pushback, I'll be like, just come once, just try once and see what you think, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Is there any advice or suggestions for folks who may be listening who are a bereaved parent and haven't done support and it's been a few years or it's been like a couple decades, never done support? Do you have any words for them in terms of like encouragement or insight?
I think we always need support in our grief, even if it's been 2 decades, right? I joke I'm 22 years down the road. I'm looking for someone who's 23 years down the road so I can say to them, "Oh my gosh, did you have this happen?" Right? It doesn't matter where you are. I think we're always looking for someone that we can talk to. I think that's might be where the resistance comes in, or the hesitancy is like, well, it's been 6 years. Should I come? Should I still come to group? Hasn't it been too long since my person died? And I'm like, no. And Hummingbird, the doors are open whenever you're ready, whenever you want to come. Doesn't matter how your person died. Come on in, right? And a lot of my people, I sort of find a bit of a pattern too. They might come in those early days of grief, and then um, they won't join group, but they'll come back later when they're starting to realize, wait a minute, things are shifting, things are changing. I need that community again. But we always need help, and we're here for whenever, right? Grief is lifelong. We always need that support.
It truly is lifelong. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
When people experience grief, oftentimes they experience people telling them, like, you have to move on. This is what they would want, cliches, blah, 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 blah. I won't speak to all of them. How do
It's too many.
you, yeah, it's like we could be here all day.
Yep.
How, how do you address this in your work? The idea of just move on, or just like those casual comments that are made towards people.
We talk a lot about scripting answers. So if someone comes up to you and says, it's been 6 months, why aren't you? It's been 2 years, you should be dating. It's been whatever, you should be. I always say script answers in your head. So one of them can be, thank you for your input. I'll take that into consideration. And then you turn around and walk away because you don't want to engage in a conversation, right? I always say script three. One is the nice and polite. One has a little bit of edge to it. And the third one is full edge and like, I don't want to talk to you, get out of my face kind of concept. And you pick which one pending the situation. Um, I think this is, grief literacy. This is where unfortunately, we as grievers need to educate the non-grievers. And I don't know who's a non-griever because we all are in some way, shape, or form. That we don't move on from it. We move forward, we move with it, we carry it forward with it. We are ultimately changed by the death of our person. How can we move on and not bring them with us, right? So that move forward kind of thing. When it comes to language, I think we have to educate back and say, you know what, that just doesn't work. And pending how you feel in the moment dictates how well or not well you educate back, right? Or what you say. But it's grief is an educational opportunity for sure. It's just really hard when us as grievers supporting our kids, supporting ourselves. Now we have to educate everybody else. Like, really? Can't you guys figure this out on your own?
Yeah, it's heavy. It's having to almost handle the emotions other people are
Mhm.
projecting onto you.
Yeah, we become their counselor. It's like, wait a minute, no, not.
Yeah, I'm the one with the dead spouse. Why are you
Yeah,
crying? Yeah.
yeah.
Like, what is
I'm sorry
happening?
you're sad. How can I help you? Mhm.
And I want to ask you, from the 19 years of doing this work, what would you say has been one of the most rewarding experiences for you?
Mm. Um, People ask me how I can do this job, right? Isn't it sad? Isn't it heavy? They question me on that. My answer to that is I meet the people on the worst day, right? The worst has happened, their partner died, and now they're trying to figure out their what next. So I get to see people at their worst, and then I get to watch them grow and figure things out. And what I love most is when they come back to me later and say, "Oh my gosh, do you remember when I was struggling with this? Well, this is what I did, and I conquered it." And they're excited to share that with me, which is pretty cool. And B, I'm like, look at you, look what you did, right? It's so exciting. Um, the biggest actual event was I was invited to a wedding of one of the daughters of the parent that I supported. And I've known them for multiple years, and it was just so lovely to be a part of that, to see this new love blossoming in this marriage of their child. And to see them honor the deceased parent as well within that ceremony, and just to witness that and to know that I was a little tiny part of all of that was just so cool, right? Just so lovely and so honoring and breathtaking in many ways. So um, that's what I like when people come back and say, this is what I've done or this is where I am now, and I get to see the growth. I get to see them rebuilding, and that's pretty cool.
You see that evolution, that
Yeah.
change, transformation. Yeah,
When they thought there's no way I could make it to tomorrow. And then here they are. And I'm like, look at you. You made it to tomorrow. Isn't that awesome?
that's beautiful. I love that.
Mm.
Um, what would you say is your vision for the future of the Hummingbird Center? And how do you plan to expand its reach and its impact?
I'd like to see us go across Canada and beyond. We'll start with Canada. That was always been the vision from day one, was that we would be across Canada, whether we have like actual physical spots across or with our virtual, we're able to do have a group that runs on the West Coast time zone. And that's nice to be able to do that. So that's a version of the growth. How are we going to do that? Lots of blood, sweat, and tears for sure. It's a lot of work. Funding is always, any charitable organization will talk to you about funding and sustainable funding, and the challenges of trying to find that is always an issue. But also partnering with other agencies that we can refer out to and have them refer to us, right? If they have a family that they know could benefit from our support, great. And same for us. Hummingbird is just one piece of the village, right? We are not the be all and end all, but we provide one piece. And who are the other people in the village that we can um, offer up to support? So I think that's the best way to sort of expand our reach, is to have those partnerships and those collaborations with other agencies. And there's not enough of us to recreate the wheel all the time, right? What are you good at? What are you good at? What are you good at? And let's all work together and support this family.
Just one piece of the pie. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I am not the whole pie. No way.
And I know you're part of the Legacy Expo this year, which is super, super exciting.
Hmm.
How did you get involved in it, and what are you most looking forward to in the fall?
Um, so I sort of got roped is the wrong word, but Camp Widow Canada or Soaring Spirits Canada is going to be there as well. And they forwarded the information on to me and joined in that way. I'm most excited to share what we do and to learn what other people do, right? To see what the other agencies are doing, again, to build that network, that pie, that full piece of pie for others. And just, we can get kind of nuclear in what we do. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to actually go face to face and see other people. We've gotten away from that a little bit. And as beautiful as, virtual has helped us open up our world for our programming, but it is nice to see people face to face. So I'm excited to see what others are doing and to share what we're doing and hopefully, as you said, expand that reach, right? So it's gonna be fun.
Beautiful. I'm excited to see you there.
Yes.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or thoughts or insights when it comes to how can the community better support bereaved spouses and their families, and what role organizations can play in this effort, either organizations like yours or workplaces or anything like that?
Right. I go back to that practical support, right? If you're not in the industry, right, or just a friend or family, it's the practical side of it, right? And that never ends. So being there to whatever that looks like is a huge spot that you can that people can fill. And I think, understanding that this is lifelong, right? As long as we love our person, even if we've remarried, it doesn't change the fact that we still love the first one, right? I've remarried and I joke, I still like the first guy. Like he's wasn't my plan to go this route in life, but and to check in on those dates, right? The birth dates, the death dates, the anniversaries, all those things. I have a lovely little community that supports me, and all those dates are in the calendar. And there's nothing better than on, the day that Keith died, that they reach out and they say, we're thinking about you, sending hugs or, whatever message they put on it. It's it warms my heart. It's Keith isn't being forgotten. I'm not being forgotten in my grief. And it's so simple. Like texting really made the life communication really simple. That's all they need to do. And I'm like, that's lovely. We want to talk about our person. We want to share the stories. And even if it's been X amount of time afterwards, we still want that opportunity to talk and share and know that they're not forgotten, regardless of how our life is moving forward. So continue to talk about them, share the story, especially if there's kids, right? If the kids were little, they don't remember their stories. It might be, my son was 3. Well, 10 years later, he's 13, and now he can hear those stories differently, right? And 10 years after that, 23, keep sharing the stories, keep talking. That's the important part. That's what we can do, is honor the person that's died and remember them.
I have to say, as a child with part of the Dead Mom gang, emphasis on please share the stories, even if they're embarrassing or weird or whatever. Just keep sharing the stories.
Yeah, because the weird and the embarrassing ones are the best ones,
Yeah.
right?
It's like,
Your mom's
oh,
probably like, oh my gosh.
but I'm also like, oh, I kind of do that too. So it's like, I go
Yes.
figure. So
Yeah, there's weird how those connections show up, even when, like my kids were really young, and I can still see some of the stuff they do with their dad shows her. I'm like, how does that happen? It's so cool. It's so cool. It's
so
that cool.
so
Right?
cool. So cool.
Yeah.
My final question for you is, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah. Interesting question. I love it. I think, personally, I want to be remembered as someone who tried to give good love, right? Tried to support, tried to be there, tried to love in a way that people needed, and that I could do it. Um, I think that's, if anything, if I've learned anything from Keith's death, is that, love is important, being with people is important. So excuse me, I try and give good love as best I can. As part of Hummingbird, I'm hoping that, in teaching my kids and teaching other people that out of this horrible tragedy, um, that I took this unwanted education on death and dying and widowed parenting, was able to use that to support other people. Our goal was to help one person, and we've done that, and that's been really cool. Um, so that, I think I want to be remembered as somebody that, with compassion and empathy, and trying to help and loving the best they can.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you are truly, I have to say, changing the world in so many ways. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing in this space. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Marny, is there anything else you'd like to share? And if you can let people know how to reach out to you, that'd be great.
Um, well, my message to widowed parents is always, that you're doing it, right? That whether you think you're doing it or not, or whether some days are messier than others, you are doing it. And, I love the quote. I don't know who said it. Maybe I said it or somebody else said it, that, right now you're having 100% success rate of surviving every single day since your person died. And that's impressive. And like I said, some days might be messy or under the covers or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You're doing every single day in a situation that feels almost impossible. So pat yourself on the back and say, I'm doing it. I'm figuring this out. And that's huge. And if we can help, Hummingbird Center for Hope, we have the website. I'm sure, I don't know if you link it in or however that works on your end of it. Email me. We can get you into the programs. I'm happy to talk one-to-one with anybody and share my wisdoms or any resources that are available, across North America. I've got a huge list. So, yeah, I hope they reach out. I want them to know that they're not alone, right? There is people around.
They better reach out.
I hope
if you're
so.
listening, yeah.
You
Let's
tell
go,
them.
guys. Marny, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I could talk about this stuff all day long, so it's nice to have opportunity to share and to bring in another person. So thank you, Maria.
Marny's work at the Hummingbird Center for Hope is making such a difference for widowed parents and their families, and they also act as a reminder that grief is a lifelong journey that deserves ongoing support. If you're interested in learning more about their organization or the resources that we talked about, be sure to check out the show notes. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this episode and to follow us online at Philotimo Life. That's PHILOTIMOLIFE. Thanks for listening, and until next time.